As most of us are aware, because most of the faces in the room are quite familiar, welcome back. It's been an interesting 18 months to say the least, but I think collectively we've done a super good job in industry, still making it happen. There's still toilet paper on the shelves, there's still trucks on the road, there's some great new drivers coming to industry, there's just a lot of really good things to be grateful for. And yeah, we're just super excited that we're doing this today in person. We have been doing virtual for a few months now, and yeah, it's nice seeing 3D versus 2D. So yeah, we're excited for today.
Alrighty, so my name's Dave. I know I already introduced myself, but a little bit more about my role. So I'm one of AMTA's industry advisors, and I work in safety and compliance. So occupational health and safety, national safety code compliance, that's my area. So I'm available through AMTA to help carriers with their safety programs. So I'm doing a safety moment today, and what I want to talk about are tire chains. And not just, I mean, we're already past the BC October 1st cutoff. So carriers that are operating in BC hopefully are already hanging chains at least. But I'm going to talk more about the ergonomics involved in using tire chains. So quickly, some of the hazards that tire chains pose to drivers and carriers. Well, obviously there's the dangerous driving conditions that exist. If you're chaining up, the roads probably sucks. But there's also a lot of hazards involved in installing, chaining up, and chaining off. So first of all, the biggest one is surrounding traffic. Drivers are at a higher risk of being struck by vehicles, especially on roadside chain-up pullouts. But also, when installing tire chains, there's a lot of other hazards to consider. So first of all, the weather. It's probably cold, it's probably slippery, and it's probably wet. There's also the weight, though. A single tire chain for one tire on a commercial truck can weigh over 50 pounds, and a single set of triples, which is just one wheel end of an axle, could be easily over 100 pounds. So to put chains all over a truck could be a lot of work, and it's also done at awkward postures. So you're not normally working at a nice ergonomic height. You're bending and you're crawling and you're cursing when you try to get these things on a vehicle. So what I want to focus on is more the ergonomic side of things. When doing training for carriers, when carriers are training their drivers, ergonomics deserves some focus when you're trying to mitigate the risk that this installation of tire chains poses to drivers. So what AMTA has available, we've done some microlearn series on musculoskeletal injuries. We've also got a series of bulletins and videos available on our website. Now they don't specifically talk about tire chains, but what I like about looking at other sources of information is that you realize that some of the what safe lifting practices might be talked about in one area of a safety program will apply to another part of the program itself. So, you know, for myself, if a carrier can eliminate a hazard, that's ideal. The risk is gone. But with tire chains, normally that's not the case. If you're operating in some areas, you have to have them. So training, proper lifting techniques, ergonomics incorporated into that training, and then PPE and administrative procedures are all part of the controls we can use to reduce the risk that drivers face when they're performing this task. So that's all I have for a safety moment, unless there's any questions. A shout out to Workplace Support Services. So the three of us that make up that team are here today. Cliff Litke, the senior advisor, Rob Dombowski, who's just new this week with AMTA, will be focusing on human resources and labor. So between the three of us, we're available to the industry to help with any issues or concerns that you might be facing.
Awesome, yeah, thanks Dave. So next is additions and deletions, and our wonderful leader here said there is one addition. Is she aware? Yeah, so Agnes will give us a quick update on CORE right now, correct?
Hello everyone, my name is Agnes Rozanska. I'm working for the CORE department. Recently, partnerships came out with 2022 CORE auditing plan. So the 2022 COVID audit plan is in effect from January 1st until December 31st, 2022. On-site data gathering activities by auditors is suspended until May 31st, 2022. Internal maintenance auditors who are directed by their employer to remain on-site during the pandemic may continue to conduct on-site data gathering. However, the safety auditing guidelines for auditors and employers for on-site activities must be strictly followed. Continuation of the suspension will be reevaluated by partnerships every quarter throughout 2022 in response to the COVID-19 pandemic. The status of the suspension will be updated by partnerships at least 1 month in advance of every quarter. If the suspension is lifted, then on an individual basis where an auditor and the employer agree that on-site data gathering activities can be conducted safely, these activities may resume. Audit techniques. Remote interviews are conducted using web-based platforms like Teams, Zoom, WebEx, or by telephone calls. For some audits, questionnaire can take the place of interviews, but requires AMTA approval. The use of observation for core and C-core audits will remain optional throughout 2022. The use of auditors may explore the use of remote technology for observation with the approval of the AMTA. Core audits, certification, recertification audits, minimum requirements. External audits based on documentation and interviews conducted remotely are eligible for 3-year course. The minimum requirements for documentation is any 6 months of documentation in a previous 12 months period. The passing score for certification and recertification is a minimum of 80% based on overall score only. There is no minimum element score requirement. Maintenance audits, audits based on documentation and interviews conducted remotely by either the employer's internal auditor or an external auditor are eligible to maintain core. The minimum requirements for documentation is any 6 months of system documentation in a previous 12 months period. The passing score for maintenance audits is a minimum 60% based on overall score only. Small employer certificate of recognition audits and assessment, C-core audits requirements, external C-core audits based on documentation and interviews conducted remotely are eligible for 3-year certification. The current approved C-core audit instrument is used. Auditors will mark C-core observation question as not applicable. C-core element scores are reported, so compared to the core audit, there are so few C-core questions that require observation. Marking this as a not applicable does not significantly affect the balance between elements. C-core assessment minimum requirements. C-core assessment conducted with the current documentation-based process are eligible for 3 years certification. Scoring requirements for C-core audits and assessments. The passing score for certification, recertification is a minimum of 80% based on overall score and no less than 50% in each element. The passing score for maintenance, it's a minimum 60% based on overall score only. Safe auditing guidelines for on-site work. Partnerships and certifying partners jointly developed the safe auditing guidelines for auditors and employers for on-site activities. This document set the requirements for on-site work, when permitted of course, for all core audits, maintenance audit options, and auditor qualification audits, including the requirement to follow all applicable public health directives and guidelines. The guidelines are posted on the AMTA website. The WCB confirms PIR refund eligibility for the 2022 core auditing plan, and audits conducted up to and including December 1st, 2021 follow the requirements of the 2021 COVID audit plan. We are approaching right now very busy season with core audits, and our average quality assurance review time is 37 days now. So please be patient. And if you have any questions, you can always reach us out at the AMTA, or I will be available after the meeting over here as well.
Now, good friend of ours, Dale Howard, Business Development and Driver of the Month.
So, driver of the month out of Edmonton again. Yeah, Edmonton has been kind of dominating driver of the month. We've got Rob Rempel, and Cliff will go into a lot more detail with Rob at the Edmonton meeting. And last month, it was Michelle Miss Campbell out of Fort Mac with Diversified. So we need more good quality driver of the months here in Calgary. We've all got amazing drivers. Let's showcase them. The AMTA is involved in a platooning project with the University of Alberta, which I'm happy to have been a part of. I'm one of 2 driver trainers in Canada for autonomous technology. It's amazing technology, and the U of A is doing a study on how this is going to impact driver fatigue. 6-month study, so the trucks will be running back and forth between Calgary and Edmonton. So if you see any of them, just like when we see law enforcement on the side of the road, let's make sure we wave with all our fingers. And yeah, lots of exciting things going on at the AMTA, so any questions, please don't be afraid to reach out after the meeting.
Yeah, I really echo that comment. Obviously, we're in Calgary. Cliff's on a short-term visa, so you can go north anytime you want, but the rest of us that are from the south, we have, well, I know there's a good gentleman in the room that's even on the committee to select driver of the month. It's a huge, huge badge of honor for them as professional drivers, but also for industry. And yeah, social media flies, LinkedIn's algorithms are really cool, but we really need to just make sure we put in the correct amount of time to do it because it's a good program. So I echo Dale's comment. So now we're going to go on to reports.
First of all, thank you very much for the invitation. It's actually quite an honor to be here because I come from a long line of motor transport people. My dad worked in the industry for 45 years. My mom worked in it. My uncle just retired. He's 82. He worked for over 60 years in the industry. My younger brother still works in the industry. I put myself through university driving a truck. So the motor transport industry means a lot to me and my family. So I do thank you for having me. Just a couple of things. I've been with CP Rail for about 4 years now. As most of you are aware, big corporation. But with my background, I've had over 30 years of policing. I just recently retired from the Calgary Police Service back in 2018, January. So I come over to CP. Before I come to CP, I didn't really realize how big of an impact the rail and their trucking arm of the rail extended throughout Canada. And they're big, noisy, stinky machines is what they are, but they're dangerous. So that's, for the most part, what I want to touch on today is that, you know what? I tell a lot of people before I started working for CP Rail, I'd been a police officer for about 26 and a half years. I'd never been afraid one day of my life going into work. Never even thought about it. I come to work at CP Rail. For the first 6 months, my head was on a swivel. Every time I went near a rail yard, I was terrified because everybody thinks that you're going to hear a train coming. You think you're going to hear it. You think you're going to see it. You don't. They are silent killers. And every time I go into a rail yard now, my head is on a swivel because trains are actually built to disperse noise to the side, not forward. And if you're in a rail yard, and a lot of your companies do come onto our property, when we're building trains, we kick cars, and that just means we just nudge rail cars along the rail. And they, again, very silent. If people really knew how many people were actually hurt in the rail industry throughout North America, you would be shocked and appalled, but shocked. So when I was speaking with Dale, he asked me to come and basically speak about rail crossings and accidents and stuff. The last 10 years of my career with Calgary Police Service, I was working in the traffic section. Part of my traffic duties were CVSA duties as well, inspections and everything. I don't pretend to be an expert in that field, but I did do it. But in my opinion, there's no such thing as an accident. I call them collisions, and I think every one of them is preventable by somebody. Somebody's always at fault. So that's how I'm going to refer to them today. I don't refer to them as accidents. Anyway, most dangerous place for the trucking industry, for the motor transport industry, in our industry is going to be at crossings. Whether they're level crossings or unlevel crossings. Level crossings, look, even I can cross them without getting hurt. But it's the unlevel ones where you're going up a hill, you hit a rail crossing and you're going up. If you're driving a trailer or tractor trailer unit with a low boy or something that's slinging low, 2 weeks ago we had one down near Barron's. The exact same thing. He's going across. The bottom of his deck hit right where our rail is, lifted the whole rail out of the bed, dropped it down, and he kept going. Luckily for us, we had a witness that called us. Now, my job isn't to lay blame. My job's to find out what the truth is, and we'll go from there. But luckily, we were able to shut trains down because what he'd done is impacted the rail so bad that if we had a train go over it, it would have caused a major derailment. Okay, we've also had them where tractor trailer units are going across the track and their dollies get hung up. Everybody's seen them, right? You've seen them. We had one of those happen in Port Coquitlam the week that I started with CP Rail. Couldn't get out of the way for the train coming. The explosion was incredible. So rail crossings are extremely hazardous places. They're the most hazardous places that your drivers or you guys are going to encounter. Whether it's you're going across one of your members or one of your employees is going across a track and they hit a red light. So now they're stuck, half their ass is stuck on the tracks. How many times have we seen that? And then the arms come down. Best case scenario is they just break off our arms and we carry on with our day. Worst case is you're going to get whacked by a train. And again, that's the last thing. I always tell everybody, whoever has the most lug nuts always wins. And it's true. It's always true. So your drivers just have to be aware. They think they're going to hear it coming. You're going to have about 20 seconds from the time the bells start going until the arms start to lower. The most dangerous ones are going to be your B trains, C trains, your Rocky Mountain doubles. The bigger the unit, the more trouble you're going to have at any kind of crossing. But as long as you let your drivers be aware that in your training, those are the places they really have to be switched on, and they really have to be aware of what's happening. So I'm just referring to a few notes here. Part of the reason I'm here is when you people have a tractor trailer unit that breaks down, it impacts your bottom line. It does. CP Rail is no different, but when we have a collision with anything on our tracks or our tracks are disturbed, it not only, they call us critical infrastructure like you guys are, right? We're all critical infrastructure. It not only impacts that area, but it'll back everything up across the entire network to the point where now we can't get anything done. It's like shutting down. It's like when the avalanche hits in Rogers Pass and everything's stuck there, everybody's screwed by it, and it takes a week to get everything sorted out. That's kind of how we work as well. As I said, CP Police, our job is to make sure everybody stays safe, everybody goes home on time, and is safe and sound. My job isn't to go out and do enforcement, although that's some of the stuff we do, and we have the same powers of arrest. We have the same, I'm no different than a CPS member or the RCMP. I can go across Canada, I can do enforcement all the way across Canada and not have an issue. I've never looked at my job that way. My job is to make sure that everybody stays safe and everybody goes home. Sometimes, do I have to issue tickets? Yeah, me and my guys do, but that's secondary, okay? Right now, we are I'm sorry, I just lost my place. Right now, we don't have a lot of issues with the trucking and the motor transport industry. We don't have hardly any. And we want to keep it that way. I'll just leave you with this. If your drivers do the same thing that we all teach our kids when they're walking across tracks, stop, look, and listen. If that's how the only thing that we teach you guys today, the only message we put forward today is that, then we've won. But again, I want to thank you all for inviting me to the lunch today and giving me the ability to speak to you all. If you guys have any questions or concerns or problems, I'll be here at the end of the meeting. Please feel free to come out and have a chat.
Well, we got you just for a second.
Sure.
So if, let's say one of the drivers did have got high-centered,
Yep.
plow blade made contact with the
Oops.
tracks,
Yep.
low boy gets hang up,
Yep.
what would be the best procedure for that driver to do?
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Excellent. Look at him feeding me. So, on the back of every crossing, doesn't matter if it's CN, CP, you're going to see there's a phone number, there's a 1-800 number, there's a location, and all you have to say is, I'm on Highway 2 near Wetaskiwin, and the signpost says this. And they'll go, we know exactly where you are. And we will come out, we'll have a look at it. Look, I'm not going to tell you that we're going to pay for everything, we're going to do, but I've also had trucking companies where they lost a load, wiped out one of our bungalows, and it was $100,000 bungalow, and CP went, yeah, we were going to replace that next month anyway, so we'll eat that. That's fine. Thank you very much. We appreciate you guys calling us. So it's all about the safety, and as far as that goes. So yeah, that's an easy one.
It's usually blue or yellow.
Yeah, you'll see it. It's big, bold, and beautiful at the back of the signs, on the crossbucks.
Or on the post. So just
Yep.
take a look for that.
Yeah.
Too, there was an incident down, I think in Oklahoma recently. Transporter got hung up on the tracks.
Yep.
And if you ever want to see a Jeep go airborne, watch what happens when an Amtrak train wipes out a car carrier.
Yeah.
They're not stopping. And if you try to stand there by the track and flag them down, they don't have time. 1-800, help me get off the tracks. Give them the identifier. All right.
As soon as our unit plugs their brakes to go into emergency, guaranteed it's going to take them 2 football fields to stop. We can't swerve and we can't stop. Yeah. So if you can the sooner you let us know that you're hung up or you cause damage or there's something else going on there, the better off it's going to be for everybody involved. Okay?
Again, I would also like to thank you for the invite again. I got told about this 3 days ago. It was supposed to be my sergeant coming here, but so bear with me. I just basically got a quick cheat sheet on kind of what was brought up on what has changed with us and what my sergeant wanted me to talk about today. So with commercial vehicle enforcement, a lot of things have changed in the last 18 months, let alone the COVID stuff. We merged with the sheriffs about 2 years ago. So now all of the previous commercial vehicle enforcement members are now armed. We're getting tasers right away. Bunch of other authorities that I'll talk about in a little bit. We have now merged with all of the old Sheriff Highway Patrol members, and now we're all one branch and one group that patrols the highways. There's new districts and boundaries for all of us. So now Calgary is now District 5, and there's a couple sergeants in District 5, and we have a new inspector. So like for me in High River, my boundary is now changed. I don't go any further south than Staveley now, where I used to go all the way to Claresholm. A bunch of stuff has changed there. We're looking at getting more sheriffs trained in CVSA. We have more members on the road now. So the way that we're basically doing it is that all of the previous, they were called STOW, Sheriff Traffic Ops, before we merged with them. All the previous sheriff members have an option to get CVSA trained, but all their sergeants are getting CVSA trained. They just finished their Part A and B 2 weeks ago, I think. And actually I was around a couple of them today when they were getting their first couple inspections done, and they're kind of learning the processes now. So we'll have more CVSA trained inspectors on the road in a few months once more people get trained and they're done their 32 and they can kind of go and do their own thing. As for CVSAs, with all these changes, there's obviously been some stuff that we have more to do now, let alone just work the scales and just do inspections. Now, in saying that, it is still a focus for all of us to do our to do our CVSA inspections. We still do well over what we're required. I'm sure you guys know Airdrie's still manned a lot, Strathmore's still manned a lot. All of our scale locations do still have members working directly out of them, and they're probably open. Airdrie's open the most out of anybody in the Calgary area, obviously, because they're probably the busiest. But Strathmore, for example, in our area is probably open at least once or twice a week still if there's enough members working. We still do weekly JFOs with Calgary Police as well in town here. So we'll get easy numbers from there. There's 100% still inspections getting done. For me, for example, I haven't really noticed my inspections change, let alone the new impaired authority we got, warrant authority we got. We can stop passenger vehicles and everything like that now. Nothing's really changed for me. My numbers pretty much look the exact same. We're basically just doing more on top of what we used to do all the time. So the biggest thing that my sergeant had kind of wanted me to talk about is the new mandatory alcohol screening for commercial drivers. So the last couple months, all sheriff members, including commercial vehicle and the stow side, are now trained in alcohol screening and impaired driving investigations. So it is now mandatory. Since 2018, December, I believe it was made mandatory in the criminal code under section 320.27 that anybody in a vehicle, commercial driver, passenger vehicle, whatever it is, that's stopped by a member who is trained on their proof screen device can get screened for alcohol. So I'd probably say we're looking at about 80 to 90% of our members are now fully trained. There's still a couple that have had time off and that kind of thing that aren't done yet, but basically if you get stopped at a scale now, or your driver, I just say if they get stopped at a scale, if they get stopped roadside for whatever reason it is, they should be getting screened for alcohol. The first thing we do as soon as we approach the vehicle is we do a mandatory alcohol screening. When it comes, your guys' biggest concern is obviously going to be the commercial side. So commercial tolerance, or let me explain the program first. So last December, so December 2020, the province implemented a new sanction program for impaired driving. So now they're called IRSs, Immediate Roadside Sanctions. So for commercial drivers, it's a brand new program. It never had it before, where before they had the 0.05 kind of program and that kind of stuff. And then obviously the 0.08 criminal code. The new program for commercial zeros is what it's called, is brand new as of December 2020. So your drivers cannot have any alcohol in their body whatsoever. They could blow a number reading, which is, they could blow a 10, which is a 0.010, which for all of us in here with a full class 5 license, if you're driving your personal car, that doesn't matter. You're fine, you're good to go. Commercial drivers have an absolutely zero tolerance policy. So we have had, in 4 months, as people are getting trained slowly, we've had 33 commercial zeros in 4 months on commercial drivers, whether it's at the scale or roadside or whatever it is. The first offense is you're looking at a 3-day license suspension. For all of the commercial zeros, no vehicle seizure happens. So your guys' trucks won't get seized if we're at Airdrie scale or something like that. Basically, the truck is just parked, we take his license, and then there's a fine as well. It's a $300 fine for first offense. Second offense, your driver's looking at a 15-day license suspension and a $600 fine. And third or more offenses under the commercial zero program, he's looking at a 30-day license suspension and a $1,200 fine. But under all those, based on the commercial, we don't want to tie you guys up and tie up your trucks and stuff like that. So the commercial zero is the only program where there is no vehicle getting seized. So I had one recently. Basically, it was a first offense, obviously. They just got another driver to come out to deliver the load, and that is completely fine. The driver that we had that we suspended, he just can't drive for 3 days. That's all it is with that. So obviously there's different sides of the IRS. There's the caution and the fail and all that kind of stuff. But I know that you guys are more concerned about the commercial side of things. So they can't have anything in their system. And the registered weight that you're looking at for that is 11,794. So it's the same thing as your CVIPs and stuff like that. 4,500, like the landscaping companies, they don't have to worry about it yet, which I think it should get changed. I think anything over 4,500 should probably get commercial zero, because you can still get in a pretty bad wreck if you're hauling a Bobcat impaired. But that's beside the point. Right now they've decided on 11,794 is the number. So anything registered above that is where the zero tolerance policy comes in. When it comes to mandatory alcohol screening, there's a couple things that you can have. So basically, you do your first screening. Let's say you blow a number reading for a commercial scenario. Every driver has the right to a second test on a second device. We always have 2 on us, basically as like a fail-safe. It's completely voluntary. They don't have to do it. But they have worst comes to worst, they do 2 tests, and we always take whatever the lowest is. So for commercial zero, it doesn't really matter if they blow 2 number readings, it's 2 number readings, and they get charged with a commercial zero. But we mainly see that where if we get a fail and it drops to a caution, we charge them on the caution. It's a way less penalty. It's just, again, basically just a fail-safe. Since sheriffs have been doing it, we have had over 2,000 provincial sanctions under this new program. So obviously most of those are passenger vehicle stuff, but we only had 33 commercial zeros. But that just goes to show that there's a lot of impaired driving on the road, which is extremely upsetting. Whether it's the cautions or the fails or whatever it is, that includes everything. And the novice GDL zero as well, I should probably mention, is that if you're on your GDL, same thing as a commercial zero, you can't have any alcohol in your system. But yeah, that's probably the biggest thing that we have done since the last meeting we had, really, that we've changed, that I know you guys were concerned about and wanted to kind of get an understanding of on the commercial side. Is that's a big part of our job now, is the impaired stuff alongside the commercial stuff, alongside speeding and everything else that goes on the highway. The only other thing noted here that my sergeant had was the new ELDs. So we're even still learning this. Like, we obviously had a few people that have kind of headlined this when it comes to the ELDs. Us regular road guys, we're still learning how they work. We're still learning what's allowed, what's not allowed, that kind of stuff. Basically, what I have noted here, and when it comes, like, any questions on the ELDs, feel free to come and talk to me after. If I don't know the answer, I will get you the answer. If you can give me your email or card or whatever it is, I can get back to you guys if I don't know it. Because like I said, we're still learning on a lot of this stuff too. But right now, I know that it was June 2021 where you're supposed to start having your ELDs in the trucks and that kind of thing. We're still in a very soft enforcement stage. We're pretty much going education over enforcement for the next year. So we're not going to get into any sort of passive enforcement until June 2022. I believe it's June 12th, 2022 is when, like, real, and I shouldn't even say real yet, because even then I'm told that we're going to kind of go into like a light enforcement where we might start giving a little bit of penalties, that kind of stuff, maybe out of service. There's no clarification on that yet either. But right now, when it comes to the ELDs, I know that there's 6 approved devices. They're all available on Transport Canada. I was actually looking at them this morning to try and mess around a little bit. But no, when it comes to the enforcement, paper logs are not out of service yet. So like, as long as they have their paper log and everything looks good there, let alone the 13-hour rule and 14-hour rule, all that stuff would still be an issue. But if they produce this with a paper log instead of an e-log, that's fine right now. It's not out of service yet. We're giving basically a year grace period, you could call it, for you guys to kind of get your ducks in a row and everything gets figured out. All the kinks of the ELDs get figured out. You can figure out which one you want, and we can kind of go from there. And I think, yeah, that's pretty much all I got. So yeah, if you guys have any questions, feel free to come, or right now, yeah, absolutely.
Can we do questions right now?
Yeah, absolutely, go ahead.
2 come to mind, and the first one it's a quick one, just has to do with cannabis.
Yep.
So what are the implications for cannabis use for commercial drivers under the IRS system?
So IRS system has nothing to do with cannabis right now. It will. We're looking at getting, it's called a dragger system. Basically, the way that the cannabis testing will work is going to be a swab of the mouth for saliva. We put it in this system. It registers it, and there's it's the same kind of thing like alcohol. There's a couple different tolerances based on the reading that we'll get. We haven't had a whole lot of training on it yet because we're not doing it right now because of COVID. We don't want to be sticking swabs in people's mouths. But
we're so used to it now.
yeah, true. But no, for the cannabis, the other thing is that the cannabis screening won't be, it's right now in the criminal code, it's not mandatory. So we would need to have reasonable suspicion to believe that the driver is impaired by cannabis to do the dragger test. Whether it's smell is an obvious one when it comes to cannabis, it stinks. Or red eyes, glossy eyes, that kind of stuff. We would need to have some sort of grounds to do the test when it comes to cannabis. Obviously, there are the basic things that I see all the time when it comes to cannabis in both commercial and passenger vehicles is transportation of it. It's not supposed to be within reach of you, just like beer. The way I explain it is if they got their joint container right next to them in the cup holder, I say, well, would you have a beer right there? And most people go, well, no. Well, I can't do it with cannabis then. It's not like cigarettes. It's like alcohol. Can't have it within reach of anybody in the vehicle, or else it could be a ticket. They could take it if it's not in a proper container as well. It's supposed to be in the approved Canada container that should have the duty sticker on it, the whole 9 yards, because at that point we seize it because we don't know where it came from. We don't know if you got it from Joe Blow on the corner of 17th Ave or if you bought it from the proper dispensary. So at that point, we seize the cannabis if it's not being transported properly and if it's not in the approved container. That's probably the biggest thing that I see roadside is that it's illegal transportation of it. It's not being transported properly. It should be in the back, way under a seat where you can't reach it, or in the cab or whatever it is. It needs to be away from the driver and all occupants. And yet another one you said?
Tolerance for commercial drivers is 0 for
Yes.
cannabis as well, right?
It would be, yeah. Like once that part comes out, it will be the same thing, that there'll be no tolerance for cannabis to be in the system of a commercial driver.
Okay. And then the next question had to do with the convention section of the carrier profile. So these penalties to commercial drivers
Yep.
who violate the 0 program.
Yep.
So they have an escalating form of penalty. The carrier is not penalized to the same extent because you're saying the vehicle is not seized. The carrier
Yes.
can make accommodations. What about repeat offenses of the same carrier?
That I'll have to ask probably somebody from our impaired team and see if they've looked into that yet or not. Because I know that it is. I should have mentioned this actually. I think it is on here. I just forgot to say it. If the driver is found impaired under the 0 tolerance policy, it is out of service on our inspections. So if we do a level 3, it is out of service, and I believe it's under section 88.02 of the TSA is where our section comes from for the new IRS programs.
Is it a CVSA out of service? Or
Yes, it will be, because at that point the driver is unfit for duty, basically. Yeah, I couldn't remember the exact section when it comes to CVSA, but yeah, that will be show up as out of service on the inspection report, because like I said, the one I had a couple weeks ago, we did a level 3, and yeah, it is out of service if the driver can't drive anymore.
And there's the contravention section in the carrier profile where these are recorded, but they don't impact the R factor yet. Do you know if there's any changes coming that way?
Let me grab your card after, and I'll take a note of it, and I'll talk to my sergeant, and I'll talk to our impaired team to see if they've heard of a lot of like the carrier side of things yet. Because that I don't know yet. Like I said, the commercial program is brand new. It's only been out for, November, 10 months. I could see it probably impacting the carrier, but at the same time, like I said, we were not seizing the vehicle because we don't exactly want to harm you guys for your driver drinking and driving. So let me get back to you on that one, and I'll try and dig into that today and ask around. I'll make some phone calls after the meeting, because that is actually a really good question, so that way the carrier kind of understands. Yeah, go ahead.
Sorry, can you just repeat the second offense and third offense?
Yes. So, second offense, the driver will be looking at a 15-day license suspension and a $600 monetary fine plus victim surcharge, which is 20%. So that'd be $720, I think, around there. And then the third offense and every other offense after that, so if they're on 4th, 5th, 6th, is a 30-day license suspension and a $1,200 fine plus victim surcharge. Yeah. And anything after, any sort of suspension after 7 days, we seize their license and destroy it. So on the first offense at 3 days, that normally it's COVID, we have nobody in our offices or anything like that. We mail it back to them. But anything over 7, we seize and destroy the license. They got to go to registries and get a new license. Yeah.
Are there restriction codes, like a code 49 on true motor vehicles for over 7 days? Or for the 3 days? Like, are they paying the reinstatement condition code for IRS?
Yeah, no, I see. For the IRS, I don't know. I know, like, the way that we, like, on a first offense, because that's all I've dealt with so far, the way that we explain it to the driver is, because they don't have to do anything to reinstate themselves, they just got to wait the 3 days, right? So when I mail them the license back, obviously it's going to take more than 3 days, so they keep the IRS form that I give them, and that's their license after 72 hours until they get their license back in the mail. When it comes to the IRS, the only reinstatement code thing that I know of is where you get into the caution, second offense, and any fail, where they have to do a course. That's where a reinstatement code will come in. But for the 3 day and less, and anything that has no reinstatement, they're basically just waiting on their license suspension. To my knowledge, there's no reinstatement codes.
I just have another question.
Yeah.
Are you guys communicating with the FMCSA and Clearinghouse so they can't cross border now?
I don't know. Our impaired team might be.
Can you add that to your question? Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, because that would be more. I'm trying to think of who would probably be dealing with that, or you know who that might be. That might be the APIS people, like the program people that we submit the forms to. They might be kind of dealing with that on that side. We wouldn't deal with that, like because as soon as we submit our file with our report and everything, we're pretty well done with it.
Right.
Like the way that they're doing their program now is that we don't even. If the driver were to go and dispute it, we don't even talk to anybody about it. It's just our report that the adjudicator reads versus what the driver's saying. And the adjudicator basically says, yeah, okay, you got a point, and they pull it. Or, no, this report is good. This is what happened. The charge is going through, basically. Once we submit that report that day, like we have to do it at end of shift every single time. As soon as we submit it, we're done. I put it in a file folder, and I don't really hear back unless something major were to be an issue with it. So yeah, it would probably be them. But again, I'll try and ask around and see.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Perfect. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a massive trickle effect. So.
Oh no, 100% it would be. And yeah, like I said, the commercial program is 10 months old, so there's still something like that. If they're not doing it, that'd probably be a good thing to maybe implement.
Yeah.
So that's something we can maybe bring up to them and say, hey, let's communicate this with these people, and so that everybody kind of understands.
Okay, thank you.
Awesome. Yeah. Thank you so much.
Yeah. Thank you guys.
If you want more information, just hit the old Googler there and go Safe Roads, all one word, Alberta.
Yes. Yeah.
Safe Roads, Alberta. It'll take you to the link. It'll talk all about the IRS program. So
Yeah.
if you have any questions that, maybe could be easily answered off the old Googler, have at her.
Yeah.
Safe Roads, one word, Alberta.
Yeah. All right.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you guys.
All right, friends. We are going to get on with our guest speaker now. We have Ed Atchison, who's with Alberta 511, who's the manager of Transportation Management Center. So, yeah, this has been really good. And our friends with law enforcement, thank you very much for presenting too. So the floor is yours.
Awesome. Thank you guys, and like everybody else, thank you very much for inviting me. Very happy to be here. I've learned a lot from everybody I've heard speak so far in the room. Today I'm going to go over a high-level overview of 511 Alberta and some of the things that are new in 511 and some of the things that are coming in 511. The newest thing in 511 right now is myself. I am 8 days into the job, so a lot of the stuff that I'm presenting to you now did not exist up here 8 days ago. So who is Alberta 511? So it's a free service available to anybody in Alberta, commercial drivers, passenger drivers, anybody can use 511. Provides up-to-date information on road conditions, any events that are going on. We get information from a number of different sources. So typically, if there's something major going on the highway, we find out about it through one route or the other. Once it's verified, it's on the map. An example of that, yesterday there was a road closure, was it 2 days ago? Road closure in just on Highway 16, just east of Sherwood Park, Cardrossan area. And I did a test just to see, because I was curious. I set a route from Edmonton to Mundare, and it routed me over to Y Road and back up and onto Highway 16 again. And the next day, once that closure was removed from the map, it was a straight route. So it does, it's intuitive, and it does tell you the best route for you to go. We are always open 24/7, 365. I have a team of 8 people under me, so we're kind of a skeleton crew. Sometimes we only have one person on duty, but for the most part, they're quite capable of keeping everything up to date. From what I've seen, they're a pretty impressive team, actually. So we provide information. Main goal is for people to be able to trip plan their routes, know of any hazards that are on their route, and make adjustments accordingly if they need to. So road conditions, traffic events, delays, over-dimensional loads, ferry statuses, special events, and much more. So, okay, different sources that we get our information from. Most of the stuff that we get comes from highway maintenance contractors. They have an app on their phone, traffic reporting app, so whenever they're doing construction or come across an incident or whatever they're doing on the highways, they just send us a message through the app, and it updates on our map. So that map is public facing for the most part with the information they're sending us. There are a few things that aren't public facing that are kind of cool in the app. So the maintenance contractors they'll send us anytime they pick up a roadkill animal or something along those lines. There's compiling data on where all these animal strikes are happening. That part isn't public facing, but it's data that can be used for future planning, signage, things along those lines for high risk areas. Other transportation staff, other ministries such as Justice and Solicitor General. We get lots of reports from RCMP, Environment Canada. I found it interesting. My third day on the job was third or fourth anyways, was when the big storm was coming through here. So in the morning, they have a big briefing, all kinds of different agencies involved. Environment Canada does a briefing telling you when the snow is going to be the heaviest and which areas and all the rest of that. So it gives us a really good idea of what to expect and how to update things throughout the day. We have lots of partners with municipal police and emergency services, and we get a lot of stuff from social media as well. So if we can get a verified source on Twitter or whatever source it might be, my operators are always watching this big screen with all kinds of different feeds coming into it. So, for example, that accident east of Sherwood Park, Global reported on it, verified source. So we put that on the map about the closure and went with that. Okay, so we share it through various platforms. The main one being the 511 mobile app that you can get on your smartphone for free. Basically, you can type in your route that you want to go on. It will give you instructions on anything you might encounter along the way. I used it this morning driving down from Edmonton, and when I was coming into Airdrie, it told me to get into the right lane because the left lane is closed. Basically instructed me on what was coming up on the road ahead of me. And I also used it to direct me exactly to this location because I'd never been here before. Okay, so there was a big redesign in late August 2018. One of the things that I've really noticed since I've been there is that they're always evolving and always looking at new things that they can incorporate into the system. I've sat in on lots of meetings, and there's lots of really smart people trying to figure out ways that we can make things better. In 2018, came up with the ability to personalize your experience, so you can customize your routes. If there's a route that your drivers are traveling all the time, they can just name that route within the app. Whenever they're about to drive that route, they can press the button, and it'll map it out, and it'll tell them, oh, there's new construction at this location, or there's a highway incident at Scott Lake Hill that's going to cause delays, or whatever the case may be. To save and display your favorite cameras, so there's 244 cameras that Government of Alberta has up throughout the province. Each of those cameras, total number of images is 400 and some. And then we also have access to many of the municipalities and cities and towns that have their own cameras. They give us their feed as well, so we can see what's going on in their areas. So that's always helpful to see weather conditions, things like that. Google-based map for increased familiarity. One thing I noticed with the app coming down here is it's not like Google Maps where it tells you where to turn and all the rest of that stuff. It just basically shows you on the map, and it gives you your route, but it doesn't have the voice telling you where to turn or anything like that. But that could be a setting that I haven't found yet. Okay, more icon options for specific events and traffic layers for accurate trip planning. You can see on this column here, these are all the different layers that you can activate within the application. So road conditions, closures, incidents, constructions, overdimensional loads. So trucking companies will let us know when they've got an overdimensional load and when they expect to be done and the routes that they're traveling on. So we'll put that information on the map for the general public to have. Weather radar, so if you activate that layer, you can see the actual storms moving in and things like that. We also have access to the dynamic messaging signs. So the ones that, like the one out by Cochrane, whenever there's an event, we take that information, we update those signs with anything that's relevant. What else can I tell you about those? I think the biggest things are the road conditions and any incidents that you guys may be interested in. There is also a layer in there for commercial users. Actually, it's not a layer, it's a link. And the link includes things along the lines of the high load corridor map. There's an FAQ about the electronic logging devices, and there's some links to a bunch of driver training stuff in there as well. One of the enhancements that we were talking about one of the meetings the other day is embedding that within the app instead of just having it as a link. So when you're planning your route with a high load or something like that, or dangerous goods, you can it'll basically map out your best route when you need that. Okay, so the app is available to anyone. It's free, runs on either iOS or Android. Drive mode, so drive mode basically means when you're actually mobile down the road, if you've got this enabled, your app isn't going to send you alerts or anything along those lines because it doesn't want you being distracted. I did not have drive mode on the way here, so it was telling me whenever there was anything coming up on me, and it did have my map active. I did notice driving down that my battery went down very quickly when I had it activated. So, okay, there's Audible notifications for anything that's coming up to you, and there's the ability for you to send a message to 511. So if you come across an accident on the highway, there's a one push button to activate a voice call to 511. It actually goes to a messaging system. You tell 511 what's happening, and then it gets emailed to us in a audio file, and we update the map accordingly. Okay, we added locations of rest and pullouts. Another thing that may be of interest to you guys that we were talking about is having truck stops and the amount of parking that's available at the truck stops available on the app. For your guys who are doing the same routes over and over, they probably know exactly what they need to know. But for long haulers who are not familiar with the area, it could be helpful to them. We have been compiling more of the secondary highways on the map, and we continue to do that. So hopefully we'll get that complete. Snow plows, so they all have sensors on the contractor's plows, so you can see the areas that have been plowed or where the plows are actively working. One thing I found interesting was they did put a delay in the time when the snowplow was showing up on the mapping screen for the public, because they were getting all kinds of calls from the public saying, yeah, that snowplow right there put a rock chip in my window at that point in time. So yeah, I found that really interesting. Things you got to think of, eh? Compatibility with iPad and landscape views, and it's got a link to the Alberta Carrier Education course and all the materials and everything that you need in there. So in 2013, I was obviously not a part of this, but apparently that's what it looked like when they first moved into their new digs and set up their room. And this is what it looks like now. It's a pretty impressive operation. I know when I walked in there, I was very impressed by all the technology and everything that's going on there. It's a really dynamic atmosphere. There's always something going on, and the operators are always, I can't keep up with what they're doing anyways. So far it's been a really great experience for me. I'm really impressed with everything that I've seen. And that's about it. Does anybody have any questions about Alberta 511 that I can try and answer? And if I can't, I guarantee you I will get an answer. Yes.
Does your 511 system speak to any of the other provincial 511s?
So they don't speak to them, but there is links from ours to every surrounding jurisdiction. And there is talks about, 511 is pretty common throughout the United States and a lot of different jurisdictions, so there is talk about having some cooperation there where it's kind of seamless. Yeah.
When 511 is set up in real time, does it show real-time traffic delays similar to Google Maps?
Yeah, as soon as we become aware of it, and they put it on the system, it's on your application. As far as the updates, the daily updates, so the maintenance contractors are required to update the system before 5 o'clock in the morning every morning. During the summer months, that's the only required update from them. Now that we're into winter months, there's 2 required updates. So I think the second one is 3 o'clock in the afternoon or something along those lines, or any time the conditions change. So if a storm blows in or there's something that happens, then they're required to update us with that information. And my people are always scanning the cameras and seeing anytime there's a storm blowing in or anything. And if they're very proactive, if it looks like the storm's hitting somewhere, they'll get a hold of the contractor and say, hey, is there any update for this or anything like that? So
thank you very much.
Thank you guys.
Awesome. Yeah, thank you very much. So for our meeting today, just with respect to time, we will bypass a round table and do something what we call the tailgate. So everyone's more than welcome to stay. Cliff's going to start mixing some drinks. But yeah, this was awesome. We really appreciate, obviously, your time, just your continued investment in the industry. It's been really powerful, and yeah, we're excited for more. Do you know when the next meeting is?
We do not. Right now, December and January, we'll go back to virtual, and we'll make a decision probably early to mid-January as far as what's going to be going forward. We got to wait for the provincial government to decide what the heck they want to do. So I just want to appreciate everybody that was able to come out today. We had a maximum of, I said it to actually change it from 30 to 40, expecting quite a few more people, and it didn't happen. So I just want to thank everybody that did come by. It's much appreciated. And I want to thank this guy for coming in and hosting. He did a great job. So thanks, Josh.
Awesome. Okay, well, yeah, meeting is adjourned, but feel free to mingle, hang out, drink coffee, fruit, all that good stuff. Good job, everyone.